It's close enough. All right. We're ready to proceed, Tracy? Yeah. All right. All right, well, I'll call to order the Department of Transportation Board of Directors meeting scheduled for today, March 11th, 2024 at 9:30 a.m. I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Good morning. Governor Joe Lombardo.
Present.
Lieutenant Governor Stavros Anthony.
Here.
Controller Andy Matthews.
Here.
Member Virginia Valentine.
Here.
Member Frank Lepre.
Here.
Member Justin Kalb. Member Gary Prea.
Here.
Governor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll close agenda item 1, move on to the first opportunity for public comment. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you are calling in, please call the number 775-888-7440. Do we have any public comment there in Carson City?
Yes, Elizabeth Learnhardt.
Hey, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Governor, good morning, trustees. I'm here because last week Douglas County designated Highway 50 an emergency evacuation road, as presented by Sheriff Coverly. This resolution concurs with your Governor Lombardo's decision of no lane reduction for the 13 miles from Spooner Summit to Round Hill. Today, I'm presenting you with this resolution for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment?
No, sir, we don't see anyone.
Do we have any comment here in Las Vegas? Seeing none, we'll close the first opportunity for public comment and move on to agenda item number 3, receive director's report, informational only item. Ms. Larkin.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We'd like to start with first slide. Introduced, we have a new Assistant Director of Operations, Jay Pullen. He started with the department in 2005 as a staff engineer in the rotational engineering program, which I'll talk about a little bit about later. He spent a number of years, almost a decade, at the District 2 level in both bridge inspection and also running permits, utilities, etc. And then moved down to Carson, where he worked in project management and then also in traffic operations. So welcome, Jay. And then on the next slide, you can see that we're slowly filling those vacancy parts. So one by one, we'll keep filling them in. On that part is the Assistant Director of Planning. The interviews have been concluded, and that should be announced soon. The Communication Chief's interviews were conducted, and an offer has been made. So that should be showing up next month. The 2 administrative assistants, our interviews are being set, so hopefully they'll be filled soon. And the interviews are completed for the District 1 engineer, so that should probably be announced in the next week. The next slide. We're talking about Nevada Moves Month. Each March, NDOT, through our Safe Routes to School program, we host a Nevada Moves Month. And this annual event promotes safe walking and biking to schools as well as other physical activities. This is the 14th year that Nevada has participated, and activities are planned for Clark, Washoe, Carson City, Lyon, Douglas, Story counties, and other school districts across the state. Last year, over 6,000, so 6,600 students participated. So it's a fairly active program. On the next slide, NDOT was the recipient of 3 different partnering awards at the Associated General Contractor Award ceremonies. We won partnering awards for Contract 3991, which was Lockwood Interchange, and that was the extension of a Lockwood on-ramp onto westbound I-80. Contract 3956, which was US 95 Fallon to Trinity. That was drainage, bridge lighting, pavement improvements, and that's a 32 miles of US 95. Particularly, the reason this one was highlighted was because there were sinkholes that started to appear from old cottonwoods that had deteriorated. And they were cut down in the 1920s, left in place. So those were fixed, rather unique area. And then the last one you can see, which is actually pictured on the bottom, was an emergency contract that was up at Virginia City where the erosion from the storms last spring. Our next slide shows some of the storms we've experienced in the beginning of March. So Mount Rose Highway was closed over March 1 to 5. It received nearly 7 feet of snow in 5 days. I-580, as you can see coming down there through Washoe Valley, we had a jackknife semi that came in on like 11 p.m. the night before on Sunday. Because the winds were so high, we could not get the heavy tow truck out to move it out of the way, which caused the delay on Monday. Was a rather unique was rather unique last week, where all the roads were bone dry coming into Washoe Valley, and then Washoe Valley just you couldn't see, it was low visibility. The jackknife truck was cut off the all travel between along the Washoe Valley part, so people went around East Lake. That was I want to say 2-hour delay that really turned into more like a 3 or 4-hour delay getting around through there. Next slide. We had on February 28th, we had a train derailment in Elko. It partially derailed under the 12th Street Bridge in downtown Elko, and multiple cars at the end of the 100-car train struck the concrete bridge columns and spilled processed corn. The really excellent part about it is no one was hurt. We don't know the cause of the derailment. They're still under investigation. But I'm really putting up, it is a local bridge, but NDOT was called in. Our district engineer out there went out and did the first inspection, did a preliminary one, and then we sent up the state bridge engineer from our department to go up and do with the inspectors to do a more thorough inspection. On a bright note, it is primarily minor scuffing and scraping, mainly cosmetic, so no urgent repairs are needed. But the processed corn, apparently a lot of people went out to collect it, which means part of the train is still on the track. On the next slide, we talked about just a reminder of the I-15 Tropicana Phase 3 that we have put in, and you can see on the side the permanent closures for the next year. Basically, it'll go from February of this, well, I'm not sorry, not to next year, to fall of 2024. The ramps are closed 24/7, and that's the southbound I-15 flyover to eastbound Tropicana, the Tropicana on-ramp to southbound I-15, northbound I-15, access to Arena Drive, and the I-15 northbound off-ramp to Tropicana Avenue. But slowly but surely, it's moving along. Next slide. In the South Virginia Street Management Plan in northern Nevada, it's on South Virginia Street between Patriot Boulevard and St. Mount Rose Highway. It will identify short-term safety solutions, midterm cost-effective safety solutions, and long-term solutions pending the funding. So the in-person meeting will be held Thursday, April 11th from 4 to 10 at the Tamarack Casino in Reno. Next slide, a little bit on the bond sales. So first, we want to thank the board for the bond sale that you authorized during the December board meeting. In advance of the bond sale, our highway bond credit rating was upgraded, and we actually have a very high bond rating. We announced that the motor vehicle and fuel revenue bond sale interest rates were lower than projected. You can see on the screen that we were projecting an annual a percentage rate of 4.25, and it was actually a 3.41. And on the $50 million, there was 2 bond sales, one for $100 million, one for $50 million. And the interest cost on the second one was projected to be 4.33, and the actual is 3.42. What that actually means is over the length of the 20-year term, we'll pay $15 million less. So very favorable. Oh, those bond proceeds will be used on the I-15 Tropicana Avenue interchange. We'll use it on that existing one. The US 395 North Valley's widening and repaving, and then the upcoming Henderson interchange. So those are the 3 ones it's designated for. And then we're going to talk a little bit about staffing and outsourcing. And I'm a little disappointed because this was specifically at the request of member Cobb. So we'll send him another update on it. So showing the staff vacancies, the next slide. This is just kind of a general overview on there. If you look on the larger, more green ones actually represent the statewide is the largest one, where it's just under 21% vacancies. The good note is it used to be 26, so we're trending in the right direction. And then at the different districts, you'll see District 2 is at 24%, headquarters is at 16, And then in the upper right, District 3 is at 18, and then also District 1 is at 18. The smaller ones that are actually showing within the map there actually represent the 6 sub-districts. So at Las Vegas, Tonopah, Ely, Elko, Winnemucca, and then we call it the District 2. We split it into basically the Reno, Sparks area, and then the rest of District 2 because it's more rural. The next one gives an easier slide, is an easier one to read, and it does show the number of positions in each one area and then the different areas. And you can start to see, like in the sub-districts, in District 1, like Las Vegas itself is at 16%, but Tonopah is at 30%. More of the rural areas, some direct competition with the mines. District 2 in the Reno area is more of a 28%, and that's more, we're having more issues with the professional, also with maintenance, but also with the professional engineering, the professional positions, and there'll be a little bit more detail on the other pages. District 3, again, Winnemucca has the highest at 26. Again, direct competition with the mines. That is primarily also in the engineering, but also in the highway maintenance worker 3s. On the bottom, we have other ones that we did not count in the top. So we have the new positions that it's hiring in progress, so we didn't count those in there. Seasonal help. It's particular to note that we used to get up to 100 to 140 seasonal help a year. Now we're getting about 5 to 10 per season. The workforce isn't there. And then student worker program, that's a new program, so it's still just coming up and coming. On the next slide, you can see it's just kind of overall. We broke down like in the engineering positions. So when it says NDOT, the total, and then it breaks it down into the different districts. And if you'll hit it again, we're just highlighting a few areas. Next slide. It'll show like in the professional engineering, we'll have like there in District 1, 64% vacancy. That's particularly with the resident engineers with construction. We have 11 positions and 7 of them are vacant and unable to fill them. District 2, next slide. Moving along, it's kind of the same. We're a little under half, so at 43%. This is one of the things where it does require a PE for this position. We'll be looking at that as potentially one of our cleanup BDRs or talking about specifications. See, there was a time when it was not required and it changed in the early 1990s. And now we just can't pay for the PE, but it's not really required to do the job. So we're looking very closely at that. The next slide in District 3, you'll also see the same thing. Basically, 2 out of the 3 are empty, so there's only 1 resident engineer up there. Next slide. Again, when we talk about the engineering positions, we're looking again at District 2. You'll see a lot in the Staff 1 and Staff 2. These are a lot in our right-of-way, our traffic areas up there, our right-of-way departments, utilities. And again, you'll see the same thing at headquarters. It's also showing a high vacancy rate for the engineering techs coming in. Going on again, back to yes.
For the record, Governor Lombardo, on these particular issues with the PE, does this slow down the jobs at all, or third-party contracting?
That's third-party contracting, which you'll see in 3 slides. What the effect.
Okay, go ahead.
So that was slide 19. So next slide. Again, also now we're at headquarters, and it's showing particularly like in our planning area and traffic safety engineering, our right-of-way utilities. It's showing a high vacancy rate. Some of these are more specialized areas for right-of-way. A lot of times it'll be appraisers, right-of-way agents. There we'll have to outsource. Planning and safety engineering, same thing. Now, you can see in some of these, sometimes it's just 1 position. So obviously if that's not filled, it's 100%. But that becomes kind of critical in many cases. You only have 1 or 2 that are critical to that staff agency. It's not that we need 3, but we definitely need that 1. Back again now, like on the next page, next slide. We're talking like in materials, geotech. So it goes down. You can see each area. The geotech, again, we're not really getting new people coming in there, and we're getting ready to hit the next round of retirements. Some people think 30 years is enough. On the maintenance positions, you can really see like in District 2, we're down like 34%, and District 3, 25%. Highway maintenance workers, 3s and 4s. That's the journeyman level for highway maintenance workers. It is more of an issue in the north than in the south. In the south, I have a bigger issue with engineers. South. The next one is the construction crew vacancies. Next slide, please. And here you can say on the crew vacancies, as you go through, they range from 13% to 31% or so. It is a typical crew size would be 13 people on a crew. And these would be showing a lot of what we're missing is showing the for the augmentation is the inspectors, the testers. We get them trained, and it's just much more lucrative than the private one. So when we look at, should be on the next slide. So I'm looking for my. If you look on the construction crew augmentation, I'm sorry, the vacancies, what it shows, this is the full one, I'm sorry, this is the outsourcing, and you can see it over the course of the last 10 years, where actually 10 years ago, we did about 40% and 40 million, it's gone up. We're now doing $120 million a year in outsourcing. What that means, it's really a directly as we pay more for that, it comes straight out of the budget. So that's just really projects that we're not putting out. On the next slide, this one is showing just the construction crew augmentation. So again, over the years, you can see it dipped a little bit just before COVID, but now it's been going up, and particularly in the last 2 years. So that makes just a big difference of, again, it's just straight out, we're paying for people to come in to do the jobs that we can no longer do.
So part of the augmentation though is vacancy savings, correct? You're doing 120 million a year in outsourcings, but you also have a vacancy savings. Do you know what the ratio is? That 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, and as far as cost?
That one, I don't know I can find that out. I don't know that is. I know what you're saying, that in the category 01, that's a standard where we get the standard for the number of positions we have. That also covers our overtime that we do for our own crews. And the ones that here is it's straight coming out of our operating and our capital improvement fund. So it's not coming out of the same pot of money.
So the vacancy savings is eaten up by overtime, basically.
Some of it is, yes. And when we talk about that first one, if you go back a slide, that first there is, it's the augmentation that includes the construction augmentation. So this is a subset of that. It also includes project managers, consultants, augmentation, but it also includes manpower augmentation that we've had for training, sometimes to assist with payroll and accounting and so on, some of the basic functions in the department. Again, like I said, the bright note is it's at least trending in the right direction. The next slide.
What do you mean it's trending in the right direction? I see it going straight up.
Well, I meant that we went from 26% vacancy to 21% vacancy. Okay. So this one is a tool that we use internally. Look, I'm trying to find a sliver of silver lining here. This one is a tool that we use internally. So this is showing a right-of-way division. It's just so that we can target the areas that are most affected by vacancies. So again, appraisers and items like that. So we can look at each area. I'm only giving you a sample of one, so we don't go through the entire part. And then what we are doing about it. Next slide. So just showing some of our recruiting efforts. We are putting everything we have towards it. We do public service interns, we call them PSI, so college students. We have actually it's a very good program. And a number of the people that go through that program, if you're a college student, so you have to be at least 18 in college, you come work for us for the summer. And we're actually paid fairly competitively for that. But we usually have about 68 positions. We have 158 applications this year, so that's very good. We also have student trade workers. This is for high school students, 16 to 18. It's a new program that we've started. So you can start at age 16 and work until 6 months after graduation. You have to stay in school. It is aimed for like working in the equipment shops. It can be working in landscape crews, buildings and grounds. It's basically to get the students kind of used to the work environment, and they can work year round. So we're working with the school districts on that. We do have some competition with the pizza market. We had one who came and he worked both of them for a while. He delivered pizzas, but he found delivering pizzas was more lucrative for him. But anyway, we also have a rotational engineering program. We have six students that come, six college level students. They come in and do a 2-year rotation around the department. So they'll work in construction for 6 months. They'll work in design. They'll work in traffic operations. That's also at the end of the rotation. Then they're usually picked up by a different department. So again, it's a pipeline. We do a lot of outreach with the K through 9 school just to go out, introduce, talk to the kids. We do job fairs. We do CDL training through our civil rights program. We're also working with the Workforce Connection, so we've started to work with them. Hope for Prisoners program. So we're looking at all of those to see if we can augment if they get their CDL license, bring them in. We can then finish training them on the equipment. And that concludes. Any questions?
We have any questions, Ms. Larkin?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
How do we compare with the surrounding states, or is this something that's unique to Nevada as far as the vacancies and the engineers? And then also, how do we compare as far as starting salaries for some of these positions with the other states?
We compare ourselves more with the local environment that we're working in. So we do not pay competitively if you're with most of the counties or the cities, the other agencies in our area here. It's across the nation. Workforce is a complete issue, is an issue across the nation. I don't know specifically what Utah and California, what their vacancy rate is. But again, they'll be comparing to their own market. Is that okay? Is that enough of the answer?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there's nothing, that we're doing everything we can as far as, being competitive with the other states, other just as much as we can with other industries.
Yeah, we also work a lot with AGC in the north and the Nevada Contractors Association in the south. We have workforce development committees with both of them. We actually fund part of it to have more formal. I'm going to say more formal outreach, particularly for the construction sector and for to bring more people into the trades.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Stavros Anthony. So if it's getting difficult to fill these vacancies, especially in certain positions, I guess my question is, why not just eliminate those positions altogether and just let the private sector handle it? So if you're having a hard time finding 2 engineers, let's say, and the private sector can do that work, why not just wipe out those positions and let the private sector handle it? Then you don't have to worry about hiring somebody.
The main issue with when we outsource thing is that it's a 3+ ratio. In other words, it costs us 3 times as much to outsource it, between 3 and 4 times. So that's a big impact on the budget, and that takes away from the projects going out. And we didn't really talk about it here today, but not only that, but with the construction consumer index, our inflation has gone up over the last several years. The last 3 years, it's like 50%. I mean, it's when you go up, it's 30, but then it kind of stabilizes, and then maybe it's only 10, but nothing's coming down. So we have lost approximately Oh, well, there's one large one in the north where it was 70 million, but where we're finding is the estimates, just the cost of the materials has cost us an extra 50 million. So that's another 120 million that just isn't going out in other projects. So we are looking at very closely at our projects across the board and kind of trying to right size the program so that we can continue up, but trying to basically be as smart as possible about where we put the dollars.
But it costs 3 times
Yes,
to
and that is
outsource
the
something?
typical thing, like
Mm.
for chip seal, it will cost, it's about 1.5 million for us to do it, and it's between 3.5 and 4 million for a contractor to do it.
Okay,
It's not really comparing apples to apples because we have our overhead internally, but we're paying that anyway. But when you outsource it, you're also paying their overhead, you're paying for their equipment and their fleet.
okay. I mean, all right, that makes sense. I guess if there are positions that you're trying to fill and it looks like you're not going to be able to fill them like ever, you might
And-
want to just
We have a
outsource,
few-
even though it costs a little bit more, but then you don't have to waste so much time trying to find somebody if you know you're not going to be able to fill that position because it's really not, the pay is not going to attract anybody or whatever the reason is. So it's just something I think you should kind of keep in mind.
We do try to look at which ones to give or have them put them in and turn them into a position that we can use or can hire for.
Yeah,
So
change it to another position. Yeah. Okay. All right.
that concludes my report.
Any other questions? Frank, are you good?
That was yes.
Okay. All right, we'll close agenda item number 3. Move on to agenda item number 4, consideration and approval of the February 12, 2024 Nevada Department of Transportation Board of Directors meeting minutes for possible action. Are there any questions on the meeting minutes? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion.
Andy Matthews for the record. I'll move for the approval of the minutes of the February 12th, 2024 Department of Transportation Board meeting.
Stavros Anthony, second.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Frank?
Aye.
There you go. Motion passes. I think I heard all of us, so I won't ask for nays. Motion passes. We'll move on to section 2 consent agenda items 5 through 7. The issue I have here, Tracy, is taking them as one item is 5 and 6 are actions and 7 is informational only. So can we still do it as a one agenda item?
Yes, because I specifically asked our legal about it, but Lori is in the north.
Yeah,
Lori?
yes, I'm here. You talking? Yeah.
You cut off. We lost you.
There we go. Sorry, these microphones are not. They're not.
We lost you again. There you go.
I think as long as the motion is clear that you're taking action on items 5 and 6.
Okay. Do we need to hear 7 separately though? Or can that be part of the motion?
7 is just a list of.
If it's
projects
just
in the back.
informational, you don't need to take any action on it. So your
Okay.
motion would just be as to 5 and 6.
5 and 6. All right. Before I ask for a motion on both of those items, do any of the board members wish to hear any of them separately? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda. Carlos?
This is Gary Puri. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the 5 and 6 as part of the consent agenda.
I'll second Andy Matthews.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. All right, item number 7 is an informational only item. Is there any need to hear from any board members of the items associated with number 7? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, we don't need a motion for approval. We'll close item number 7 and move to item number 8, US 50 East Shore Corridor Management Program, informational only. Ms. Larkin.
Deputy Director Sandra Rosenberg will present this one.
Morning, Governor, members of the board. Sandra Rosenberg, Deputy Director of Planning and Administration. You have heard about this plan for quite some time now, so we thought it was time to give an actual presentation to the board. Next slide, please. Next slide. There we go. Just as a reminder, the purpose for this, why we did this plan, this study in the first place, a number of reasons. It's a complicated corridor with a number of challenges and limitations. So certainly first and foremost, safety. The corridor averages over 100 crashes per year, and much of the 13-mile corridor exceeds statewide average crash rates for similar facilities. So certainly a concern. Multimodal, only 8% of the corridor contains sidewalks or is served by transit, and only about 19% has bike facilities. Recreation, demand for recreation access and parking far exceeds the capacity during peak periods, and management strategies are critical. Certainly the environment is hugely important in Tahoe, and the heavy visitation can negatively impact the environment and degrade water quality. Technology, there's significant communication gaps and lack of traveler information, such as dynamic parking information. And just an anecdote on that, we were up there on February 27th for the public meeting on this corridor plan, and I had no cell service at the meeting. So just an example of those needs. Obviously not, NDOT alone will not solve all of these challenges, but we are a partner in this corridor and certainly provide some opportunity to partner on those solutions. Next slide, please. We have done a number of public outreach and engagement activities from, workshops, formal public meetings, individual meetings. We've received thousands of comments. We've had 6 rounds of some sort of public engagement. The draft plan is now available at us50eastshore.com. We're doing an online public meeting, so we are accepting comments through March 14th. That's been open since February 12th. So far, we have received 45 comments online, 8 written comments at the meeting. We do not have the transcripts yet from that, so we do anticipate additional comments coming in. We did have, as I mentioned, February 27th, we had an in-person public meeting at George Wattell High School. We had 83 attendees sign in, a number of public comments given verbally that we're receiving now. Next slide. So some of the, as I mentioned, safety is first and foremost. So I wanted to highlight some of the safety recommendations. We identify some early action safety improvements that we are hoping to advance or implement over the next 2 to 3 years, including pavement marking and edge striping countermeasures, new signs, including speed feedback and edgelit speed limit signs, and establishment of a multi-agency safety and operations committee. And then we have a number of additional safety improvements that may take a little bit longer to implement and will require partnership efforts as well, including eliminating all highway parking on US 50. That's going to require a lot of partnership in terms of off-highway parking and establishing that. So again, that multi-agency committee is going to be hugely important. The East Shore Trail, extending that, and of course, intersection improvements. I want to highlight and reiterate a number of times in this presentation that the reduction in the number of lanes is no longer a recommendation. Next slide, please. In addition, we have a number of other recommendations. Some are duplicated there, but really looking at a number of strategies, again, with our partners, including transit expansion, intersection signage, signal improvements, parking strategies, and technology. As I mentioned, we have a role in that technology expansion. We will need to work on all of these with a number of partners at the lake. Next slide, please. In the plan itself, the implementation strategy is outlined and time stratified with a list of a number of improvements. All of these recommendations will need additional analysis and funding identification. And not all of these recommendations are NDOT led. So we have it highlighted there, kind of the time stratified series of improvements we'd like to make with our partners there. And this plan really sets the foundation and the vision for the corridor. And I like to look at it as sort of the beginning, not the end, in terms of gathering support for these strategies and then working with the partners to implement over the coming years. Next slide, please.
So how can the community see the legend of these numbers? Is it on that website?
On the website.
Can you say that publicly?
If you go into the documents tab and looked at the draft corridor management plan, I believe on that site we also have, I believe we also have documents from the public meeting. We had boards up with those implementation strategies as well. I can follow up with the page numbers if you're interested.
No, that's fine.
But it's in the plan towards the end of the volume 1, which is really the main part of the plan.
Plan is located where?
us50eastshore.com. On the bottom of several slides. Yes, that's where you can find it, and there is a way to comment online there, or you could contact any of us that have been involved. And so this is a bit of our schedule. We have been working on this for a number of years with various different, again, public engagement, various different documents that are available on the website. I also want to reiterate or note that there are some documents on the website that document the process and alternatives that were considered but not carried forward. And that's part of the study record. So in some of the older documents, you'll see that lane reduction recommendation that is not carried forward into the final document. So we have been working on this for a number of years. We'd like to wrap up this plan so we can get to work on the implementation. And with that, I'd be happy to take any additional questions.
Do we have any questions from any board members? Reference US 50 East Shore. Right?
Not at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the presentation. And we will close agenda item number 8. Move to 9, executive session. Do we have any items for the executive session, Ms. Larkin? We have no items. We move to agenda item number 10, second opportunity for public comment. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. It can be for any and all subject matter at this point. And let me go back to the previous phone number, 775-888-7440. You have a sufficient amount of time for anybody that's wishing to call in. Do we have any public comment there in Carson City?
Yes, sir. We have a few members.
Good morning, Allie Waller, Douglas County resident. Related to the Highway 50 presentation, thank you for the update again. There's a trash issue at the intersection of US Highway 50 and State Route 28 where a planned roundabout or other options are presently being studied. Within the project area is a highly visited sled hill. And the proposed project is to include 250 parking spaces, pedestrian crossing, to make easier access to Spooner Lake, a boat inspection station, lots of different users and different seasons. The area becomes very overcrowded with sledding activity. A recent example of the areas of trash were published in the San Francisco Chronicle. Tahoe's family-friendly sledding hills have a big trash problem. 7 years ago, a resident of Glenbrook brought this forward. NDOT and the League Disabled Lake Tahoe stepped up and helped. But beyond that, there are issues that aren't being resolved. It might be a good idea to look at banning the plastic sleds that are leaving the trash. The other part of the article says they aren't using the classic wooden toboggans or metal saucers. They are distinctly flimsy, candy-colored polyethylene that sell for $5 to $10 to $15 at grocery stores, and convenient to use as disposables. When ridden down a cold slope, they can become brittle and easily cracked. Several years ago, the same resident mentioned the mounting trash, people leaving food, diapers. There's just lots of problems with the issues of sledding, and I'm hoping that's going to be taken into consideration. Of course, it's a reach out to agency partners as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Good morning, Brett Tibbetts, Tahoe East Shore Alliance. First of all, a shout out to NDOT for its gold standard in snow removal. Last week was a bit rough, but I hope you've all had the distinct displeasure of leaving Nevada and going into California when there's snow. California is like a third world country. You take your life in your hands when you go there. And NDOT is amazing in what it does, especially with all these vacancies. Thank you again, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and NDOT board members for eliminating the lane reduction. As was said earlier, Douglas County last week unanimously approved Highway 50 as a 4-lane evacuation corridor. My only concern remains as to why NDOT will not pursue the simplest measures first. And that is, why don't we reduce the speed on Highway 50? That would do a lot in the safety area. You start at Spoonit Summer at about 50 miles per hour. Then when you get to Cave Rock, it's about 45 miles per hour. You get to Kale, it goes to 35, and you get to the Casino Corridor and it's 25. The vast majority of the blind curves are between Round Hill and Cave Rock. And that's where the majority of accidents occur. So I just wish we could reduce that speed, which is currently 45 miles per hour, to 35. NDOT says it's pursuing lane reductions to 11 feet. We have to deal with logging trucks, which are huge. We have to deal with big trucks because it's the main transportation corridor of goods. And 11 feet, in my mind, is way too narrow. And I think the 35 miles per hour would work very well. There was a meeting Friday on the TRPA Oversight Committee, and Senator Titus asked Sandra Rosenberg if Director Larkin had the signature power to do that, and the answer was yes. So apparently Director Larkin could tomorrow change that speed to 35. It's a simple thing, and I think we ought to give that a chance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janine Iyer for the record. Just a couple of notes on the CMP, and we'll be submitting some more comments on just some of the discrepancies between some of the numbers just within the document. But one thing that always puzzles me is why on a stretch like the East Shore corridor, why we use the industry standard of average annual daily traffic and not look at maximums, because the variation is huge and it's important because it's a huge distinction. The other thing is, one other thing is bike paths. I absolutely advocate a bike path that goes completely around the lake. I think constraining it to on Highway 50 or parallel to Highway 50 makes the whole problem an over-constrained problem. I think there are alternatives that aren't being pursued, and I'd like to see that happen. Excuse me. And then the last thing is just in the last, as Brett said, in the last storm, NDOT did a great job clearing the roads, but it would be nice to have, when we have big storms, a chain control checkpoint at the bottom of Highway 50, where Highway 50 and 395 come together. There were a lot of trucks, a lot of autos. At the bottom of 50, it didn't seem that bad. It was a little slushy, people go ahead and proceed, even though it says chain controls, and there's the nice gentleman with the $40 installation chart in front of him, they still proceed up the mountain. Then they have to stop in a lane of traffic to put their chains on. So I'd like to advocate for a chain control checkpoint. And yes, Ms. Larkin, I understand that does require more people, and that's a problem. So I'm not sure what the answer is. Thank you.
Elizabeth Learnhardt for the record again. I also agree with the chain control. When you get asked around hill by a driver next to you at the light where the next chain purchase place is, it's obviously too late. Now, my comment, there is still a lot to be done improving safety on Highway 50. Lane narrowing is not practical because of the increased side swipe risk by particularly big rigs and also during the snow. Particularly interactive chevrons, widened rumble strips, mirrors, more traffic light, improved configuration of shoulders are all relatively cheap changes and can be quickly accomplished. Turning lanes where possible would greatly enhance some neighborhoods and help them. NDOT has variable amounts of right-of-way along the highway and needs to use this for road improvements like the turn lanes. The specter of bike lanes is still haunting the plans. Just like Janine says, why is it that the bikers are not willing to share the road, or we can put them completely off the road in a separate area? I'm basically find that all participants of traffic on Highway 50 experience the errant driving. I drive there daily, and it always amazes me what strange things happen on this highway. I don't know if it's intoxicated driving, distracted driving, but it's clearly not all doesn't all have to do with speeding. So the road configuration will not remedy this. Only frequent policing will send the necessary message that equally applies to all the speeding as well. And I know that's also a constraint by having enough patrol cars and highway patrol. Several recent studies showed that the effect of legalized recreational cannabis showed an average increase of traffic fatalities of 10%. I really wanted to point this out because it's not being addressed by either TRPA or NDOT. And this study included Nevada. It was 5 Western states. Of the 14% increase in impairment fatalities from 2020 to 21, 18% had multi-drug causation. A National Highway Traffic Safety study found that 50% of motorists involved with serious crashes had drug use. So I really think we need to look at that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
We don't have anyone else, sir. That's the public comments up at north.
Do we have anybody waiting on the phone?
No, we don't have anybody.
All right. Do we have anybody here in Las Vegas? Public comment? Seeing none, we will close the second opportunity for public comment.
Governor,
Yes.
just before we before we adjourn, I just wanted to make a note that next month that we will be covering the I-11 corridor for background, because it'll be new to most members of the board, and also that Congressman Amodei will be coming. He wants to make some comments on it. He'll be in Carson City.
Okay. Were you able to hear that there in Carson City, Ms. Larkin's comments? Yep, you're waving your head. Yep. All right, I'll move for adjournment. Item number 11 for action.
Move to adjourn. Stavros Anthony.
Second.
Second, Andy Matthews.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Everybody have a great day.